Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Legends of the Spire. This week we're talking to Tom Curtis. Tom was a regular feature of the Chesterfield midfield in the 1990s, one of John Duncan's key signings, who started his career both juggling a university degree and playing in the Chesterfield first team. It was really interesting talking to him. We had a little chat about penalty taking and that special cup run, and even the Battle of Saltergate, which is a bit of an infamous incident that's taken place in Chesterfield's history. He had a real managerial air about him, I thought, when we spoke to him. He's had a really successful coaching career since finishing playing football, both internationally and now with the FA setup with the national teams. So I hope you all enjoy the latest episode. This is the one and only Tom Curtis. So how did you end up in Derbyshire? Because you're not a Derbyshire boy, are you? Born down south, weren't you?
I was born down south, but I am a Derbyshire boy. Yeah,
Right.
We moved up when I was 3, something like that, 2 or 3. So yeah, I've always been in Derbyshire, really.
Right.
To be honest, so I classify myself as a Derbyshire boy, definitely.
Yeah. So is that how you ended up at Derby then in the youth team?
Yeah. So how I ended up there was played lots of sport at school. So I played football, cricket. I was a big swimmer at school as well. So my mum and dad used to take me to swimming in Nottingham. So I swam competitively from about 12 through to probably about 16. And we'd be training six times a week, and we'd have galas on Saturday. So I'd also be playing football generally for school and district and county, but not for any professional club. And eventually got spotted, I guess, by a guy called Richie Williams, who was the Derby County under-16 coach at that time, and got invited in for a trial, and then it went from there. Really, I got signed as a schoolboy. I was actually halfway through my A levels, so I'd missed out on that scholarship program, or I was asked anyway. Sorry, I was asked to do the scholarship, to join in that scholarship. It was apprentice YTS back then, but I'd got partway through my A levels, so it was decided that I would continue and finish the A levels and play sort of part time for the youth team. I'd go in training during the holiday breaks, so played for the youth team, and eventually got offered a pro contract there at the end of the 2 years of playing in the youth team.
Yeah. And then, so in an ideal world, would swimming have been your first choice if you could have been a professional, or was football always your thing?
Nah, swimming was hard. Swimming is blooming hard. I mean, I'm not big enough to be a swimmer. I'm hardly big enough to be a footballer. But when you start to get towards the back end of age group competition, you go into men's open. So I was a 15, 16-year-old boy who hadn't physically developed at 15, 16. Basically, I was in a 12-year-old's body swimming against men.
Yeah.
So it became really, really difficult and challenging, and the training is so hard. You're there 2 hours a night, up and down all the time. It's tough. So I didn't really have the build, didn't really have the inclination to keep going my swimming, and it was at a time really when football was coming in as well for me. So I never really thought of myself as being a professional footballer when I was little. I can certainly say that. I really enjoyed football. I loved playing in the district on Saturday mornings. We'd play on Wednesday afternoons for the county. I'd play for school. I'd play for a local side on Sunday mornings called Ladywood Juniors. We'd play in that group as well. And then when Ladywood Juniors finished, I went to play for in the senior team at a place called West Hallam. So I played a year in the men's league when I was early 16s. So that, I guess, helped as well in terms of my football development. So you're playing in the men's league again in a 12-year-old's body. It constrains you to be able to work things out and come up with solutions. And I suppose that really helped me in terms of my development. So yeah, no, swimming. Yeah, I did enjoy swimming. Loved cricket as well. I was really a good, decent cricketer. Had a couple of games for the county. But yeah, eventually football sort of took over really without it being a real goal. I never really said to myself when I was little, I want to be a professional footballer. It just sort of, I guess, happened for me.
And what position were you in youth teams? Because it seems that everyone we talked to were all strikers. Even Steve Grizovic was a striker when he was a kid old, where you played.
My debut for Derby County, professional debut, was at centre forward. No. And I scored a hat trick on my debut actually against Notts County. So my debut in the youth team, I scored a hat trick on Tuesday night. I can remember it. It was right foot volley, left foot volley, and header in the youth team. Anyone that's listening to this and seen me play for Chesterfield will be thinking, "Nah, he's winding me up a bit." But yes, hat trick on my debut for Derby County as a centre forward. So when I was a young player, I was a centre forward. I was a wide player. I was quite quick. And then gradually sort of migrated myself back to a dour central midfield player that always passed it sideways.
It's funny how everyone seems to start off up front. I suppose this is a lesson for scouts around the country, just to sign up the centre forwards that can end up anywhere. So then, how did you end up? Because you were then at university, weren't you, when you ended up signing for Chesterfield? Is that right?
Yeah, so I did 2 years at Derby County, and it was at the time where Derby was taken over by new ownership. So when I signed, Derby had just been relegated from the old First Division, the Premier League today, into the Second Division or the Championship. And I signed that season, and there were players in that team like Peter Shilton was in the team, Dean Saunders was in the team, Mark Wright was in the team. They all left. Thought, right, we've got a decent opportunity here to get myself in the team. That was the idea. But then I can't remember what the new owner was called. But anyway, some money came into the club, and they paid big money at the time for some decent players. So people like Marco Gabbiadini, I don't know if you can remember that name, Paul Kitson, Craig Shaw, Mark Pembridge. The club was spending millions of pounds on these experienced players, which really blocked our pathway as a youth team. So I played for 2 years really in the reserves, learnt loads. It was a really brilliant time. Had some good coaches. So the likes of Roy McFarland and Arthur Cox were the first team managers, assistant coaches, but they were, really, really good coaches and had some real sort of strong values that filtered down through the club, which you had to abide by, and if you didn't, then you were out in your ear. So it was a great experience for me at Derby, although I didn't make my debut at Derby. Played with some great players and was coached by some really good coaches. At the end of my 2-year contract, I was released. Arthur Cox told me he didn't think I was going to be good enough to play league football, and I should try and play it as a high level as I can. I was actually offered a job at Derby when I left as a coach. So Arthur, I'd done a lot of coaching in the community scheme when I was at Derby. So I was the one that went out into the schools in the afternoon and coached, groups of kids. So they thought I had a bit of potential as a coach. So they offered me a job actually as a coach. I suppose that was the job that a guy called Steve Round eventually took. I don't know if you know Steve Round. So Steve Round had a really successful career as a first team coach, national coach. But I decided that it would be better to go to university at that stage. So I applied for university. I'd sort of kept my place after my A-levels. I thought, right, I'm going to go to university and study. So I was on a sports science and geography course, managed to do that. And then halfway through the summer, I was offered a trial by Chesterfield. I had a number of trials, actually, at a number of different clubs. Offered a trial by Chesterfield. I was at that stage, I was just about to sign for Burton Albion as a part-time player. So I was going to combine football for Burton, who were then in the conference, and part-time with studying at university. But then Chesterfield offered me a contract. They were in League 1, League 2. Can't remember where they were. I think they were in the old third division at the time. Yeah, fourth division possibly. Fourth division. And then so I said, look, no, I've already committed to going to university. I'd really like to, but I've made this commitment and feel I've got to fulfil that particular commitment. But John was great, and Kevin Randall as well. Actually, Kev was the one that I suppose persuaded me in the end. He persuaded me to sign for Chesterfield as opposed to Burton, and it really went from there. Burton were offering me, I can remember, £120 a week. Chesterfield offered me £80 a week, but I thought it was a better idea to go to Chesterfield because they were in the league.
Yeah.
So Kev persuaded me to sign for £80 a week, and I stayed there for 7 years, which was was a good decision in the end.
Yeah, it's not bad to be able to earn something while you're at university. It's nice.
No, when I was at university, I was like a millionaire, really. I didn't stay on £80 a week for very long because I got myself in the team pretty quickly. So, I wasn't a millionaire clearly, but in relation to everybody else, I had a few quid in my pocket, so it was decent to be able to buy a few drinks in the Union on a Saturday night. Yeah, that was the man to be stood next to.
And then how did you juggle it? Because obviously you're having to juggle both things, aren't you? And you kind of settled into the first team, really. I think you played like 35 league games, I think, in your first season, I think, something like that. So
the team straight away, yeah. So I made my debut, I think it was a Tuesday night in the old league against West Ham? Might have been West Ham on that Tuesday night, I think. Or might have played on the Saturday against Carlisle. It was one of the two, but it was early on in the season. So there was a guy called Tony Dennis who John had signed that year. I don't know if you can remember, you're too young to remember him, but there's a guy called Tony Dennis who John had signed from Cambridge, and he didn't really fancy him. I think in pre-season, I could run really well back then, so I ran past him in pre-season, no problem. I probably ran past him in the games. So John thought, right, well, let's get Tom in, and maybe Tony comes out. So I got in the team fairly quickly. How did I manage it? John was brilliant. John and Kev were brilliant with me. So I'd study. My week was basically I'd play on Saturday for Chesterfield. I would study on Sunday. Monday I would go to lectures, and then I'd train with the university side Monday night with a great coach, guy called Mike Holliday, who was a fantastic football coach, really, really good. I'd then go back to lectures on Tuesday, probably get off in the afternoon and go and play on Tuesday night for Chesterfield. I'd come back on Wednesday. We'd have some lectures Wednesday morning. I'd then play for the university side in the afternoon on Wednesday. I'd be out in the Union on Wednesday night. Don't tell anybody. John used to ring me up Wednesday night and check where I was, because in them days
you run out of the pub.
Yeah, run out of the pub, and then. Yeah, and then Thursday, what would we do Thursday? Thursday I had lectures, and I'd train again with the university side. Friday, I'd travel up to Chesterfield and do the Friday morning session with the rest of the guys, things like set plays, organisation, that sort of thing. I'd then go back home and see my then girlfriend at my mum and dad's house on Friday night, and then I'd play Saturday. So that was how I juggled it, really. So I managed to play, I don't know how many games I played that year, those 3 years for Chesterfield, maybe 120, 130 games.
Yeah.
Never got injured. I bet I played 60 games for the university as well. And I ended up with a decent enough degree, got 2-1, managed to scrape through. And I didn't really feel as though it was difficult at the time. I didn't really feel tired. I always had enough energy to do what I wanted to do. Clearly, these days there'd be strength programs to get into, and that might have helped with subsequent injuries, I guess. But at the time, that stage in my career, it was absolutely fine. Really enjoyed it. It was the best 3 years of my life. I had the best of everything. So I had university, I had football. I could manage to buy the guys a few cans of Coors in the evening from the bar in the Union. It was just brilliant. Just doing everything was really cool.
Yeah, it's like the exuberance of youth, isn't it? You do just feel like you can do everything. Then
So often I work now in development football for the FA, and there's some fantastic development programs, and the players are so much better than what we were. But I do sometimes think, flipping out, when the sports scientist tells me, well, he can only stay out on the pitch for 55 minutes today. A 15 or 16-year-old, he can only stay 55 minutes, and he stops his watch when maybe it's not the sports scientists. We stop our watches on 55 minutes to make sure the player's absolutely fine. And then I think back to what I was doing, playing X amount of games per season, and sometimes I think we do mollycoddle them a little bit, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
And what did the other players in the changing room think about it when you were studying? Because it's obviously it's an unusual path, isn't it, for players?
Yeah. The lads at Chesterfield were the best lads, the best group that I have played with. So they were such great guys. So just really, really good. They were, I think that as a group, and if you weren't a good guy in that group, you wouldn't stay in the group for very long. You'd get sort of ushered to the side. So I suppose it helped that I was doing okay. So I was in the team, and the team was successful. So there wasn't anyone saying, "Flipping it, what's he doing turning up on Friday?" And just playing. It was more, I'd get some stick, but it was just that. It was stick. They'd have a laugh and a joke and that sort of thing. And I'd have a bit of a laugh and a joke back. And I always feel, me personally, I always feel like I can get on with most people. So I think I was able to get on with most people in the dressing room. And, when I trained in the summer holidays, I'd give as good as I could get. I gained a little bit of respect on the training pitch. I was a competitive player. Someone kicked me, I'd kick them back twice as hard. So, I think I gained respect from the group. So it was twofold really. So I think I had respect from the group, but also the group themselves were top guys, were really, really good guys and understood the situation.
Yeah. And like you said, you played a lot of games in those first few years. I was looking at it, was like 35 league games your first season, 39 the second season. The third season you played every league game. So what was the key to that, or was it just how it went?
What was the key to it? Yeah, it just how it went. I was fit. I was fit and I was strong. I was aerobically really good. So I always felt as though I could, pre-season when we did our runs and that sort of stuff, I'd always be at the front. I'd make a concerted effort to make sure that no one ran past me. There might have been one or two. So Mossy was a pretty good runner. David Moss, probably again a guy you might not remember, but he was playing around about that time. There was a guy called James Lomas, who was a young player at the time, who always tried to get past me, and I couldn't quite let him get past me. And sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't. And I didn't really, James used to wind me up loads, in training sessions, but he really helped me stay at the front of on top of my game, at the front of all the sessions. So actually, he was frustrating as a kid, but he really helped me, to be honest. James did, and maybe he doesn't know that, but he did. So yeah, I was really fit. I was really enjoying the football. John liked me as a player. I think I was at that stage. I was really functional. So maybe you wouldn't see me dropping the shoulder and stepping over the ball and taking people on and smacking in the top corner like Kevin Davis and Reevesy and Tony Lormer and those sorts of players. Or even at the back, Daichi would be like an imposing character, and he would jump out at you in terms of his heading and his tackles and his voice. But I think I was one of those players, again, as a coach now, I think sometimes you underestimate the players that are really functional, help the other players play. So my role really was to land on the ball in midfield and give it Kev. And Kev would run forward and cross it in for John or for Andy to score. And you'd probably notice Kev running forward and crossing it in, and you probably notice Andy and John knocking it in, but you perhaps wouldn't notice the bit where I landed on the ball and give it to Kev. And that I think we all helped each other. So I was quite a functional part of the. I think I was quite an important part of the group and the way we played. So yeah.
Sometimes those functional players can get a bit of stick, can't they, from fans sometimes, because maybe you're passing it, you're just starting off the moves, or you're passing it sideways a bit, you're not having the Hollywood pass always, and sometimes you get a bit of stick, but they are really important part, especially to good attacking teams, aren't they, or good winning teams?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Listen, I'm not saying I was massively underrated and I should have played in the Premier League, but I think at that time I was okay, and I helped the team do well. did I get some stick off the fans? Mate, no, not really. Not really. I think there was the odd one or two, but I think there is in any team. The fans were always brilliant at Chesterfield. You always felt it was a really family orientated club. The fans would really support the players, and the players felt that they were part of the club. I think back then players would stay at the club a little bit longer than they would do now. We were part of the social scene, for want of a better word. All the lads lived close to the ground. All the lads would try and get in early to see each other, to have a game of cricket, to have a cup of tea before we went out. And we'd all socialise together as a group as well. We'd all, if I think about the friends I've still got in the game, I'd pick out Chris Perkins, I'd pick out Jonathan Howard, I'd pick out Andy Morris, pick out Kev Davis. Those sorts of guys, they were not Jules. We were so close back then. We were really, really close. We all went out together. We all socialised together, and I think that really helped again the group, and it helped the team's performance.
Yeah, I think as fans as well, you can tell when you've got a squad like that on the pitch. They'll just seem so much more together when you're celebrating goals and things like that. Everyone just seems.
We were. Yeah, I mean the years we went up. So I'm not sure what that year was. Was that my third year?
I think it was second year. I think.
Definitely. The year we went up, and then the year of the cup run. I suppose those 3 or 4 years. Crikey, we were definitely together. Yeah, we had a real tight group, and yes, we had players that came in and players that came out. If you came into that group, you had to be really good. Do you know what I mean? So I think of lads like Marcus Ebden when he first turned up. We were all a little bit suspicious of him, really, because we played against him. We knew he was a good player. He comes into the dressing room, we think, who's this? He wasn't shy, Marcus, and he'd shout the odds straight away. And we were all thinking, I'm not sure about this. How's he going to get in our group? He did eventually, because he's a good lad and a good player, and he eventually gets himself into the group. But there were players that came in at that time that would come in, and we'd think, not sure, and they go out fairly quickly. Not sure that's a good thing, but that I guess that sort of demonstrates the tightness to the group we had at that time. I mean, Sean was the captain at the time, and he wouldn't suffer fault. He'd tell you straight, whether or not he thought you were behaving in the right manner, whether or not he thought you were playing in the right way, and he wouldn't have any airs or graces to you. He'd just tell you. Yeah. And I think that honesty ran through the whole group. If people didn't give their all on the pitch or run hard, you wouldn't be in the group very long. And I think John and Kev were really skillful the way they managed the environment. So the group would do a lot of that sort of stuff. Training was always good. I mean, we had some awful facilities. If you look at the facilities these days, we train on Holbrook Valley Park. You get Kev going out to check out which park was free that morning before he got into to work. Then we got and train there. But it never really mattered. We just got on with it. And again, I think that was unbelievable time at the club, and really shaped my values, I guess, as a coach now and as a person.
And what was it like on the pitch with kind of Dicey shouting instructions at you from behind? What's it like having him behind you?
Yeah. Well, we had good players throughout. In those years, we had some really good players. So Dicey played at the start with Nicky Law. And Nicky was the shouter and baller, really. He was the organiser. So Nicky was a good player. And then he as he got a little bit older, we started to struggle a little bit on transition and the counter-attacks and all that sort of stuff. So players like Darren Carr came in at centre-back. If you can remember Darren was... you want Darren in your team because he was honest as the day is long, great defender, tough as nails. He was absolutely nails, another good player. And then Mark Williams as well behind us, who came in towards, just after promotion. I think we signed him from Shrewsbury. Another top player. He was a top player. He went and played the Premier League, and he's a good player. So the players that played behind me, including Sean, were, I had some decent players at Chesterfield playing behind me, and I guess my job was to try and protect the back four out of possession. Yeah. And John was always talking about sliding and screening, so we did a lot of that. running sideways to stop the ball, getting into the front players to try and protect the back players. But when the ball did get in there, those players were really good, and they were good at organising the stuff in front. So yeah, there's some good players. And Daichi was strong, vocal, aggressive, ruthless, tough, all those things. Ironically, he started as a right back. When I first arrived, he was a sort of ball playing right back. He fancied himself as a bit of a footballer, and he was a good player. But yeah, he played right back, and I think he had an injury, and when he came back from, I think it was a broken foot, he ended up at centre back. I mean, he never really moved away from that position.
Yeah, and then like you touched upon with the playoff win and getting promotion, that was that must have been a great experience with that happening kind of early in your career.
Yeah, I was still at university, so I can remember all my mates from university came and watched. I don't know what the crowd was. It was about 15,000. It wasn't that many, but we were at Wembley, the old Wembley, and it was I guess it was one of the first times I played on a pitch that, you know, it was so manicured. It was unbelievable. I can remember walking on it the day before, and you'd make footprints on the pitch because you turn the grass the opposite way to the way the roller had sort of laid the grass down on the surface. So it was a brilliant experience. As with most of those big games, I can't really remember much about the games, if I'm going to be honest. It all ends up as a bit of a blur. I can remember being tired and not playing that well, the game not being that good. But we scored, I think, off two long throws, two Nicky Law long throws. I think Robbo scored. I think Tony Lormer scored. And then we were fairly comfortable for the rest of the game. The one thing I do remember is the morning of the game. We played a back three. We played a 3-5-2 all year. We've been really successful, and we'd won the last. I think we had a run towards the end of the season where we were absolutely flying. We won loads of games. And then on the morning of the playoff final, the gaffer says, "Right, we're playing 4-4-2." So we've not done this all year. So we played a different formation in the final than we did for the rest of the year. A lad called Des Hazel came in and played left midfield, and then he left straight after. I think he played maybe two games, but he played in the playoff final. And then Billy Stewart as well. He played in goal. So I think the goalies win. I think Jed got injured. Mick Leonard got injured in that season. So we had two new players in the team for that particular game. And we were playing a totally new system at Wembley in the biggest game of all our careers. So we managed to see it through. So yeah, it's good.
What were you all whispering to each other as players when he comes out and says you're playing 4-4-2?
I don't know I can't really remember if we whispered or not. We just got on with it. You know, I don't think it was like, we really, I mean, John, we all gave John a bit of, not a stick, but we had everyone had a really good relationship with John. I mean, he's the best manager I worked with by a million miles. And I think even now, again, as a coach, you look back to some of the stuff he did, and he did get some stick towards the end of his time at Chesterfield, but he was a genius as a manager, a genius as a tactician, and a genius in terms of man management. He would really get the best out of everybody. And he'd always be able to pick the team to suit the needs of to suit the strengths of the individuals in the group. And I think that is, that's coaching, that's management, that's what the best people can do. And he was always able to do that. So there was a lot of trust there, I think, between the players and the manager. And he would have rationalised it. I can't remember how, but he would have rationalised it in a way that we all thought, yeah, it's a pretty good idea. He would have got buy-in, definitely.
Yeah, and yeah, I just wondered whether there were opportunities to kind of go elsewhere during that time, because I read that there was rumours that, was it like West Brom or someone like that had maybe inquired or something. I just wondered
back
like that.
Yeah, back then we never had agents, and we didn't really find that sort of stuff out. I can remember reading it in Shoot. It was Shoot that I was going to go to West Brom for 400,000, I think it was. But no one ever told me about it if it happened. I think John's mentioned it since. How far it got down the line, I'm not too sure. I guess, I mean, we had we had good players in the group, and eventually after the FA Cup semi-final, most of that team actually moved on, and most of the team moved on to some really, really, you know, to better things. So not better things, to higher levels.
Yeah.
So Mark goes into the Premier League. I eventually go to the Championship. Darty went into the Championship. Kev went into the Premier League. Billy went into the Championship. So there were some good players in the group. So it wasn't an accident that we were successful in that FA Cup run. It was like, Chesterfield from League Two or League One playing against the Premier League, and we ran them really, really close. That's no accident. You know, it wasn't a fluke that we had a good team. You know, we weren't far off Middlesbrough in terms of the quality in the group. I know they had Janino, who was a step above everybody, and they had Emerson, who was a Portuguese international. But the rest of them, we weren't far off. So it wasn't an accident that, it wasn't a fluke. It was just because we had a good team. And we put everything, I think towards the back end of that season, we put everything into the cup. So if you got to that stage of the cup and you were a League One team now, I think you had a League One team that was capable of getting into the Championship, you'd probably put all your eggs into that basket. But we put all our eggs into the FA Cup basket because that at the time was a bigger competition for, so we went that way, and we rested players in the league when, listen, if we'd have gone strong in the league, we would have gone up, no problem. And I think we would have stayed in the Championship, no problem as well.
Yeah. So do you think that was the right decision then, to concentrate on the cup in hindsight?
At the time, yeah. I mean, the cup was everything back then, wasn't it? The cup was such a big thing. I mean, we went. Yeah, that was again, it's a long time ago now. What was it? 25 years, more than 25 years. Yeah. So again, I don't know if you can remember, but the town was buzzing. The whole town was buzzing. It was just so cool. You had people making cookies and Chesterfield FA Cup cookies in the bakers, and you had like Chesterfield flags outside the clothes shops. I can remember people queuing for tickets all the way down the road outside Saltergate. There's a real buzz and real good feel in the town. So I think, again, the purpose of clubs like Chesterfield is to they're the hub of the community, and Chesterfield for sure at that time was a big part of the town. The club was a big part of the town, and maybe in recent years that sort of drifted away for one reason or another. But at the time, it was a big part of the town, and everyone felt that they were part of that success. So, was it the right decision? Absolutely, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I mean, it was like I say, you scored the penalty against Forest. So and with the keeper getting sent off, you had quite a bit of time to think about it, where you're going to put it when a keeper gets sent off. Do you remember that kick? Did you already decide?
Do you remember that one? Yeah, I remember that one because Nicky was on penalties that year, and he had got. He was out of the team by the time we got to the backstage of the FA Cup. So Nicky was on penalties. He got injured in a game away at Luton, and I took the penalty at Luton. Don't know why, I can't remember. I can remember getting it, and I smashed it down the middle. We won 1-0. So now I'm a penalty taker. So a couple of games later, we're playing against Wrexham on I think it was Saturday afternoon. Away at Wrexham on the racehorse ground. Get another penalty. Flipping it, I'm on penalties again. Don't know why or how, but I can remember turning my hips and kicking it in the bottom left-hand corner. Scored against against Marriott. I think it was, yeah. Anyway, I scored that one. Gets to the quarter final against Forest, and we get a penalty again. And there'd been no chat about like, Tom, you're on penalties, but I was on penalties. So yeah, I got the ball fairly early. There was a bit of a kerfuffle. I can remember Dean Saunders and Brian Roy trying to give me some stick. It was in front of the away end, and I could see, because I'm from Derby, but I'm from Ilkeston, so half of Ilkeston sports Derby and half of Ilkeston sports Nottingham Forest. So I could see all my mates, the Forest fans in the crowd, and they're all giving me some stick as well. But I felt pretty calm at the time. God knows why, because I wouldn't do these days. And I put it exactly the same place I did against as the penalty I took against Wrexham a couple of weeks before, and that goes in. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and we win 1-0.
He's taken Howard out. Howard got goal side of the defender. Crossley knew no other way to stop him. And Chesterfield have a penalty against 10 men. Crossley, a shake of the head, is on his way to the dressing room. He won't bother stopping to see the rest of the action. And what a chance for Chesterfield of Division 2. And Alan Fettis is the substitute goalkeeper. What a moment for him to have to come on, though, to face a penalty, and it'll be Tom Curtis who takes it for Chesterfield. He's had successes from the spot before now. And the former Loughborough University student can give Chesterfield the lead here, and he scores! Chesterfield 1, Nottingham Forest 0, and you'll be able to hear the roar as far as Nottingham.
The game, we stuffed Forest, really. We out-physicaled them. I think we were 1 or 2 players down that day because there'd been a big fight against Plymouth a couple of weeks before, and a couple of lads were suspended. So Big Daz was suspended. I'm not sure if Daichi played. I think he was out injured. I think Dutch played at centre back. Me and Chris Beaumont played in midfield, and we had them off, really. They had some good players, but they didn't. It was a cold March day, bobbly pitch. Fans were mad for it. We were absolutely mad for it that day, and we didn't. We weren't checking out and keeping possession of the ball for 25 passes. But every time they had a touch, we'd be all over them. So we played against Bart Williams in midfield, who was like a cultured midfield maestro sort of player. But me and Chris just had him off because every time he touched it, we smashed him, and it took a bit of a back foot. And yeah, and it was a good day. It was a good day. And it's brilliant when all the crowd came on afterwards. It was fantastic.
When you do become penalty taker, did you ever have a practice in training or anything like that? And when it comes to matches, when you get a penalty, is part of you just thinking, "Oh, heck, I've got to take another one"?
Well, I work with England teams at the moment, so I work in I coach the under-17s for England now with a colleague of mine, as well as some of the other youth teams, and the players practice all the time, so we try and get them to practice penalties. And every time we get an opportunity to take penalties in a friendly fixture, we'll take that opportunity. So we might have a friendly fixture against the Netherlands, and then at the end of that fixture, we'll have a penalty shootout, so we get some practice. And in training, the players will practice. And you speak to people about Harry Kane, for instance, and he's really structured about his approach. He practices all the time, and there's no accident that he scores all the time as well. Got to be honest, that wasn't me. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I know now. So I was a penalty taker, and I'd take 1 or 2 penalties, but I didn't practice them in the way that I should have done. And there's lots of things I would like to do now, do differently now, I guess, as a player, knowing what I know now as a coach and knowing how the game's moved on. But no, I didn't do a lot of practice at all. And that particular penalty, I felt fine. I missed the next 2. So I missed one against, I can't remember. I missed one against Peterborough. I put it over the stand, tried to smash it and put it straight over the stand against Peterborough. I missed 2 in between that penalty and the semi-final penalty. So when we got to the semi-final, I was really still on. I suppose in many ways I was still on penalties because no one had scored a penalty or even taken a penalty in between the 2. So I've watched it back, and we get the penalty, and Andy Gray goes, "Tom Curtis is on penalties, but he's missed the last 2," and it zooms in on me, and then it zooms in on the gaffer on John, and he's going, Daichi, and like I've got the ball. I'm looking around, and fortunately Daichi's come and took the ball off me, and he smashed it down the middle, and he scored. So I was spot in many. I think I can't remember, but I think I was probably on, in inverted commas, penalties, but John was pretty keen for Daichi to take it when he did, and probably it's a good job.
By Hewitt and Morris. Can he hold off Fester? Still Morris. This terrific play brought down He's shouting Dyche, I think. He's shouting to the captain. They're all looking at each other. Come on, who wants it, lads? They're looking around. Someone step up. Put your foot through it. But this is the incident. Festa, he muscles out. Keeper goes to ground. I think the goalkeeper's unlucky, I have to say. I think the big lad earned the penalty.
Well, let me tell you, Tom Curtis scored against Forest from the penalty spot to win the 5th round tie, but he's missed 2 since then. And he's passed the responsibility to the captain.
Well, if you're not sure, lad, the only ones I can offer that, just smash it.
Sean Dyche. He smashed it all right. Chesterfield lead. Middlesbrough by 2 goals to 0.
Would you have done the same? Would you have just smashed it?
I think so at the time, yeah. But I tried to smash against Peter and I smashed it over the bar, so who knows?
Well, it wouldn't have gone over the stand, I suppose, at Old Trafford. Well, it would have to be a really bad one to go over, go over the stand at Old Trafford.
Yeah, it got funny. Yeah, like it's funny that, like you say about going over the stand. Willow, Mark Williams always tried to. He saw it as a bit of a challenge to clear the stand, in the game. So one of his clearances had to go in the stand, and he said, I can remember him saying before the game against Old Trafford, we're walking around, he said, I'm going to clear the stand, I'm going to whack it over the stand, and he had some good goes at it. I don't think he made it in that game, but it was so funny. He's like one of those things you're sort of laughing about during the game when he smashes it as hard as he can directly upwards, and you know what he's trying to do. So yeah, it's funny.
That's something he had in his contract then. A little bit of a bonus every time he clears the stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose seeing as you mentioned it, we should touch upon it. But the Battle of Saltergate and that big fight was just a few weeks before Old Trafford, wasn't it? It was just. I mean, what happened there? It was just one hell of a fight, wasn't it, between the two teams?
I took the corner, so I was out taking the corner. It was a good ball actually, probably one of my few good balls from the corner. Just dropped it, I think, onto Darren's head. He went up for an header. I think he clashed with one of their centre backs, and then it all kicked off. Again, it was a tough game. Plymouth were tough. They had some tough centre backs. They had a guy called Ronnie Mosier who played for Plymouth, who was a really good footballer, but a tough guy as well. He was a central midfield player. I always used to have a good battle with and was pretty scared of him, but I felt I could be competitive on the pitch. But then as soon as I got off the pitch, I wouldn't go in the bar afterwards because I thought he might beat me up. But yeah, they were a tough group. I don't know what happened. No one's going to back down in our team. So if someone pushes Darren, he ain't going to back down. Same with Kev. Kev's not going to back down. So I think those two ended up getting sent off, and then everyone else sort of joined in.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe Jamie. So if you get a chance to look at it,
I think I remember him kicking someone up the arse. I think Jamie.
He kicked someone. It's a good clip because we'll give him some stick about it. So he kicks someone while we're on the floor, and then he runs off. Jamie. It's funny, yeah. It's all kicking off, but you didn't want to get in the way of Darren and their big centre half having a fight. It's not the right thing to be doing. I just stayed at the corner flag and kept out of it.
Yeah, and then yeah, going on a bit. It was a disappointing final season, wasn't it? I think that was the relegation season. I think you only played kind of about 17 games, I think, something that season. So was that a disappointing season, kind of looking on?
Yeah.
For a lot of the games, while that was all not winning games.
I got injured, so I was injured for a lot of that season. I'm not sure how many knee ops I had that year, but I think I had one, then I came back, then I had another one. So I was out injured a lot, so I didn't play. That's why I didn't play. And we'd lost. I think Sean had left by then. He got to Bristol City. Billy had gone to Bristol City as well. I think Dutch had gone to Bristol City. I think 3 of them all went. So we'd lost some pretty good players. For one reason or another, we'd had some significant injuries, so it meant that we played some players that wouldn't normally play, and we just got a really poor role. A really poor role, and we couldn't score. I don't think we conceded that many, but we couldn't score. And then eventually John went, which was really disappointing. I think when John went, I think I was out injured again. And Nicky came in, and then a guy called, was it Darren Brown? He came in to take over the club and all sorts of shenanigans going on with him in charge. So Yeah, it was a disappointing end. But to be fair to John, he'd been there for what, 8 years, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And then he'd also had another really successful spell prior to that spell. So, I mean, to this day, if you ask most people who the best manager Chesterfield have had, you'd be saying it was John. I'd be saying it was John. I know we've had some good ones since, and Cookie was good, and he had a decent team. But in terms of longevity and success and getting the best out of the players, you couldn't look, you wouldn't look further than John Duncan. He outstanding guy, brilliant coach, top man manager, and a really good friend of mine still. So, and the rest of the guys. So he'll always, be friends with Daichi, or speak to Daichi a lot, and he always looks after his lads even now. So yeah, good guy. But disappointing, you're right, really disappointing end. But
Yeah, and then
inevitably in football, this happens. People get the sack. I think that's the one certainty in football, is that the managers will go at some point.
Yeah, nothing goes on forever, does it? And then you ended up moving to Portsmouth, didn't you? And it was it Tony Pulis that signed you? But then he was gone after a couple of months, wasn't he? So
he left, yeah.
Yeah, so that must be really disappointing when you sign for a club for a manager and then he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, again, really good guy, looks after his players, really well organised, very much like John, really, in terms of playing style. Massively successful. You can't disregard the stuff that Tony's done in the game. Really successful at a number of different clubs. Top coach, top coach. Don't underestimate how good he is as a coach and a manager. But I was fortunate enough to go to Portsmouth with him, but unfortunate again to get another injury. And this injury was the injuries I had at Portsmouth really stopped me and changed the way I had to play. So prior to going to Portsmouth, I was a runner. I was really good at getting up and down and getting close to someone and slowing down and putting pressure on. It was really difficult to play against. Perhaps didn't have the football that maybe I had towards the back end of my career, but effective. So when I went to Portsmouth, I broke my ankle and then I smashed my knee up. So I was out for 18 months. And when I came back, I wasn't as quick. I lost a yard of pace. Couldn't change direction in the way I used to be able to change direction. So I had to adapt and change my game. So I was now like a sitting midfield player. And actually, I could pass it now. So ironically, when you're out injured, you do a lot of technical work. And I got better with my left and my right foot, better at controlling the ball. So when I went onto places like Mansfield and Tranmere and those sorts of places, I was more of a footballer. I was more of not quite a creative player, but I definitely be able to control the game a little bit better.
Yeah.
Maybe just certainly playing a different style. So Portsmouth was again a really good experience because I trained with some great players. So if you think about there's like a Robert Prozinecki who was at Portsmouth at the time, who was at Barcelona, and you think he won the Ballon d'Or. And then Paul Merson was at Portsmouth as well. What a good player Merce was. Learned a lot from those sorts of guys and had a good experience, but didn't really play that many games, if I'm going to be honest, because of injury.
Yeah. And then you ended up at Mansfield, didn't you? Like you said, did you ever think twice about that just because of the long time at Chesterfield, or was it just a good opportunity to move back up?
Certainly. When I was playing in reserves at Portsmouth, just getting back to some sort of fitness, I had two offers. I was coming to the end of my contract. I signed a 3-year contract at Portsmouth. I think I had 6 months left on it. I had two offers. I had an offer from Sheffield Wednesday to go to the end of the season on decent money, but the contract was only to the end of the season. And I had an offer from Keith Curl at Mansfield to go for 18 months on less money, a lot less money actually. At the time, I'd been out injured for 18 months, nearly 2 years. Wasn't that sure about how many was going to hold up. When you're a footballer, all you know is football. I'm a footballer now, so what am I going to do if my knee goes? My only other job was working in McDonald's, and I don't want to go back working McDonald's. So it was really just a pragmatic decision at the time. It was right. I need to give myself 18 months because I know I'm not quite fit yet. Mansfield are offering me that, gives me an opportunity to get back closer to my friends and my family. Yes, it was Mansfield. but yeah, Keith was good. So Keith Curl, the coach, was really, really good coach. I think it was his first job as a manager, and he's been pretty successful subsequently. And the feel of the club and the nature of the people, it was similar to, it was different, but it was similar to Chesterfield in that, again, it's a hub of a community. It's a mining town. There's an honesty that runs through the area, which I really like and really enjoyed. So I did enjoy my time there. But got to say, one of my first games was against Chesterfield in a derby. We went down that year, but we did manage to beat Chesterfield at Saltergate, and I can remember the game. That first 6 months at Mansfield, I was pretty crap, to be honest. But we managed to win that game, and I was getting loads of stick off the Mansfield fans in the first 6 months. We went down that season. We won that game, but then after that, I did well at Mansfield. I won the Player of the Year a couple of years on the spin and was captain and all that sort of stuff. So I did pretty well in the end at Mansfield. So that was good.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we should just finally just touch upon what you've kind of been doing since, because you've had a really interesting career, haven't you, post playing? You were first at Loughborough Uni, weren't you, with teaming up with John Duncan again, and then you end up kind of in a dream job that many people think in terms of international coaching. So how did that all happen, kind of post playing career?
I finished when I was at Notts County. So I think it was about 34. I'd got a contract at Notts County. Again, I think I broke my foot halfway through the season. I had 6 months left on the contract, and I had the opportunity to sign on loan for a team called Nuneaton Borough. So I signed for Nuneaton, and that essentially meant I was going part-time as a footballer. So I had an opportunity to take this job at Loughborough. A friend of mine, a guy called James Ellis, had offered me this opportunity as a head coach at Loughborough. So I had I had a little bit of coaching experience because I'd been coaching at Derby County and Nottingham Forest, and also I suppose I was a player coach at Mansfield and Chester for Curly in many ways. So I took this job because I thought it'd be a good idea, a good apprenticeship as a coach. I never really wanted to rush into management and coaching. I'm not sure whether or not that was the right idea or not. I know a lot of people these days, when they finish playing, jump straight into management. I think if I'd have wanted to, I could have at that time, because I'd been captain at most of the clubs I'd been at. I always had the respect for the players in the dressing room. I felt I could organise a group. But I suppose 51% of me said, right, well, you're not ready. You need to do an apprenticeship. You need to become a coach, because it's a different job. So I decided that it'd be a good idea to go and do that apprenticeship at Loughborough. So I combined playing part-time at Alfreton and Nuneaton with coaching at Loughborough. Had a brilliant time, great apprenticeship, worked with some good people. We were successful in terms of on the pitch. So we got a number of promotions. We managed to build a stadium and a really nice football facility. We managed to give students the opportunity to go back into the professional game. So people were coming out of football like I did. And then they were going through our football program and then going back into the professional game, which is a big part of what the university wanted them to what we were about. We were never going to send people back into the Premier League or into the Olympics and things like that, like the other sports at the university were aspiring to do. But a big part of our role was to develop people and give them the opportunity back in the industry, and we did that, which was brilliant. At the end of about 4 years, I had the opportunity to go out to Antigua and take the national team manager's job there. I wanted to get back into pro football, and I felt I'd drifted out of professional football. Having made that decision to go and do an apprenticeship in coaching, what had happened was I drifted out of pro football for one reason or another. So I felt, I need to get back into senior football and competitive football. So I took that opportunity to go out to Antigua, and we did the World Cup qualification for 2014. So we did 2 years worth of qualification games. Again, we were, I say again, we were successful. We got further than anybody, that anyone had ever got with a nation that size. We had a development side, what we call a development side in the league called the USL, which is in the States. So it's a second tier below the MLS. And we had a team that would play in that in the summer. And then in the winter, we do the qualification games. So lots of football, lots of coaching. It was just me. I went on my own. So again, really good learning for me in terms of management, in terms of working in a different culture. Felt I learned loads about coaching, players, managing up, managing down, traveling. So it was a brilliant, more learning, more apprenticeships, and so I've always thought that having these different experiences would help me become a better manager, coach when I got an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
So that was it really. And then I came back after 2 years when essentially the funding ran out for the programme. So I came back and went to Bristol Rovers as an academy manager, which was fine. But eventually then got a job at the FA, and then I've been coaching the national teams ever since.
Yeah, and what's kind of your day-to-day job role in coaching the national teams? Is it because are you just coaching an age group, or is it a certain discipline within that age group?
Yeah, so we've had a number of jobs. I suppose there's been a number of jobs and a lot of different perspectives on what my job looks like over the last 2, 3, 4 years. When I first started, I was combining coaching the national teams with a coach development role. So I'd be delivering qualifications like the A licence, the Advanced Youth Award, the Pro licence, those sorts of qualifications to coaches coming through the pathway. I've sort of stepped away from that a little bit now, and I'm more on the teams and performance side. So I, along with a colleague of mine, are responsible for the youth development phase. So that is basically the 15s, the under 15s, the under 16s, the under 17s. So each age group will have a different objective. So the under 17s, for instance, which is a competitive group, we're trying to qualify for the World Cup. We're going to play in European Championships. That's a competitive group. Whereas the under 15s is what we call a talent ID group, where we're trying to find out who the best players are in the country, find out as much as we can about them, and help them develop at their clubs. So that's the job really. So what does it involve? It involves delivering when they're on camp, managing and organising the camps and the training, and then when we're off camp, I guess there's lots of planning involved. There's also a contribution that we have to make to Coach Ed. So we'll also deliver on the courses as well, and we'll also engage with the clubs. So getting out to watch the players and coach the players in their clubs, in their own environment, is really important for us as well. As well as I'm fortunate enough to do some senior scouting as well. So with Gareth's team going into the Euros this season, in the time since Christmas, I've done a lot of senior scouting. I've been lucky enough to get to the senior games. I've been one of the only ones that can get into those sorts of games to watch those games live. So that's been I've been really lucky to be able to do that. Yeah. So yeah, pretty cool job. Yeah.
So to kind of finish up, so have you still got ambitions to go into management? Is that something that you'd quite like to do at some point, or it sounds like a great job you're doing at the moment? So yeah, I just wondered what your thoughts are in terms of if you'd still do management.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think I took the decision maybe 10, 15 years ago to make sure that I'm ready, or to try and do the best I can to be ready if and when an opportunity comes along. So I've taken, I've had different experiences that I think will help me as and when I make that decision to go into management if I'm given the opportunity. So I think I'm pretty well equipped. I've coached international teams. I've coached in the States in a league. I've coached youth teams. I've got a really I've got a decent understanding of, certainly the young players in the pathway, and I know that would be important, I guess, if you went into a management role. So, is it something I still want to do? Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're a footballer, you've always got that competitive edge, and I think that was one of my big strengths as a player, to want to win and have that competitive edge. And I think if you're going to go into management, you need to have that edge. It's almost like, managers will say, "Oh, it's a drug. It's really stressful, but I can't live without it." And I can sort of see that. I haven't been in first team football for a number of years, so I do miss it at times. Got to be honest.
Yeah, and it seems like there's some similarities in the pathway between James Rowe, who we've obviously got as manager at Chesterfield now, in that he kind of went to the Johan Cruyff Institute and did some education there, and has been doing some work at the Premier League, and then he's kind of building up a coaching career post that. I just wondered if you'd kind of taken notice in terms of what was happening at Chesterfield at the moment, and that kind of revolution under his management in the short time he's been here.
Yeah, it seems good. Yeah, it seems like he's doing a good job. I don't know him. I've not come across him, if I'm going to be honest. I think I'm a bit older than him, unfortunately. I wish I was his age. So yeah, I think he's it seems like he's done a really, really good job. I haven't been back to Chesterfield for a bit. I mean, it's something that is definitely on my list of things to do. I'd like to go and see the team play and sort of get more involved in the club, if I'm going to be honest. But I suppose in recent times I've had other stuff to do, and even now you can't get into those games. It's really difficult to get into. So yeah, I've taken note. It's great to see the club back on the on the front foot. We need the club back in the league, don't we? We need them back in the league, challenging for League One and Championship, because that's where I see Chesterfield. I don't see them as a conference side, if I'm going to be honest. So hopefully James can continue to do a really, really good job and get them close back to that level.